One day, a long time ago, Jesus was sitting by a place called the Sea of Galilee, big lake in Galilee, and people started coming to hear Jesus talk. This huge crowd gathered. Jesus' friends, his disciples, shopkeepers, other farmers. They knew that Jesus told great stories, and they wanted to hear Jesus tell another one. And so Jesus began to tell a story about a farmer. Now, in Bible times, farmers didn't have tractors or equipment to help them plant seeds. They just had a bag where they put their seeds in. You can see the bag to the left of the farmer there. And they would reach into the bag and they would grow seed and they would throw out the seed as they walked along. Well, they scattered the seed here and there. And Jesus tells the story about a farmer throwing out some seed. He says, a farmer went out to the field to plant a crop. As he walked up and down the plowed up ground, he took handfuls of seeds from his seed pouch and he scattered them on the ground. And Jesus continued. He said, now some of the seeds fell on a pathway where the dirt was packed down as hard and smooth as clay. Too hard for any seed to really take up root and to grow. They just lay there in the path, and the birds began to swoop down and to pick them right off the ground. People understood this, and they were nodding as Jesus was telling his story. They knew that seed falling on hard ground would never become a plant, could never produce any fruit. Well, let's read from Luke chapter 8. We're going to read verses 6 to 8. And Jesus continued in the story. He said, some fell on rocky ground, and when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up with it and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than was sown. Well, Jesus told the story, and he ended the story with these words. He said, he who has ears, let him hear. The disciples, they looked at each other and they were confused. They thought, what does this story mean? Well, a little bit later, Jesus was with the disciples, all alone with them. And they asked Jesus, why are you telling people these stories that are hard to understand? And Jesus knew that they were confused and he wanted to help them understand because they were his followers and he wanted to teach them more. And so we read in Luke chapter 8, verse 11, where Jesus says to them, this is a meaning of the parable. So Jesus is going to tell them about what it all means. And it says, the seed is the word of God. The word of God, the Bible, the words that we find in the Bible. That's what those seeds represents. And so you have this seed, and this word is in their minds when they hear it. But can it change them? And that's what the soil represents. When they hear the word of God, will it change them? Will they understand what it means to the point to where they will start living their life differently? And so he said, first you have the path. It's the word where you believe. At first, you believe a little bit. It kind of sounds good, but then after you think about it a little bit, you change your mind. That's what the hard ground, the path represented. And then Jesus says you have the rocky soil, where when you have rocks all on the ground, the roots, when they start to grow, they can't go into the ground. They can't get deep. A plant needs deep roots into the ground for it to really grow. And so that's like people who start believing, but things get hard and in their life and they just stop believing. Well, then you have the thorns, the things that you get worried about, right? You worry about things like, am I going to have friends? Am I going to be liked at school? Am I going to do okay at school? Am I going to upset my parents? You have all these worries. And Jesus says, that's like thorns. I don't know if you know what thorns are, but sometimes plants have thorns and the thorns come out and they can prick you and they're sharp. And what happens is that because the thorns are there, the thorns are like the worries that prick you and poke you. And after a while, you're like, this is too hard. I don't want to believe. And so they stopped believing. And so 3 of the 4 soils Jesus talked about, the path, the rocky ground, and the thorns, those people stopped believing. But then Jesus says, there's a last kind of soil, and that is called the good soil. You hear it, you hear what is said, you read it in the Bible, you believe it, you trust that it is right, that it is good. And then you say, I want to live that way. I'm not going to stop believing. I'm going to believe this, and I'm going to let it guide what I do in my life. And so as we think about this story, we understand that Jesus wants us to have a heart and a mind like the good soil. In Psalm 119:11, it says, I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. Again, I have hidden your word. The word is the words we read in the Bible. It says when you put those words in your mind, it helps you to know what is good and right so that you don't do wrong. Sin is doing wrong. So you don't sin against God. You don't do wrong because you know what is right, because the Bible teaches you what is right. In this Rainforest Vacation Bible School that we're doing this week, we're going to discover 5 amazing verses this week. And each verse will give us a challenge to follow. And so our verse for today is Psalm 119:11. So will you say that with me? I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. I want you to maybe write this down or remember it or learn it. We'll kind of go over it again so that you can try to remember it. I have hidden your word in my heart. Maybe like this, like you hide something, like I have hidden your word, Bible, your word in my heart, that I might not, so I'm saying no, I might not sin against you. Well, that is our lesson for today, and hopefully you will be the good soil and you will learn from the verses in the Bible. So that's your lesson for today.